Please welcome Miles Watson.
Hi, how's everyone doing? Hope everyone is having a good Accelerate. My name is Miles Watson. I'm the engineering manager for Manage Your Experiments, or MYE for short, which is a tool on Seller Central that enables brand owners to optimize their products for better sales on Amazon.com. A little bit about me. I've been at Amazon for 8 years. I spent 6 of those as an engineer before becoming a manager. I manage a really fun team of engineers, and we love supporting this product. And our purpose as a team is to deliver the highest quality user experience to you, the brand owners, which scales and helps you to improve your product sales. So here are some of the topics that I'll be going over today. What our tool does, how to easily create an experiment with our new one-click and simplified settings, some new experiment types that we have enabled, including multi-attribute support, which is a really exciting one that we're excited about, and a few other new features that we are planning to launch later this year. At the end of this session, we'll host a live Q&A. So if you haven't already downloaded the Accelerate app, you can find instructions on the back of your badge to submit questions or vote for questions others have submitted. Use your in-app QR code scanner to scan this code, and then select Q&A from the panel on the right. All right, before we get started, by show of hands, how many of you have created an experiment with Manage Your Experiments? All right, looks like maybe a third or half of the crowd. That's pretty good. So either way, the content is going to be useful for new users, but advanced users or people who have used the tool before will also learn some new things about new experimentation algorithms that we're adding and features that are yet to be launched. So what problem is Manage Your Experiments solving for you? As a brand owner selling products on Amazon, how are you supposed to know that the content on your listing is optimized for sales or suboptimal and leaving money on the table? The answer is really simple. Our tool will tell you if one version of a title or image or any other supported attribute is better or worse with statistical significance. That means you are scientifically proving if one image is better than the other, for example. And personally, if I'm running a business, I think it's really important to be making data-driven decisions at all times, or as much as possible. So as products and customers and the online retail ecosystem changes over time, you can continuously use our tool to optimize your sales. So we also are planning to use learnings from previous experiments to recommend attribute updates, which I'll dive into a little bit more later. And why is this all important? In a study, 61% of responders from the US said that they start their online shopping search on Amazon. So that means they're seeing your product for the first time on Amazon. And for that reason, it is critical to keep a best-in-class listing page to ensure you're taking advantage of that and the first time that they're seeing it. So here's just a little bit of evidence of some of the recent success of MYE and proof that more and more sellers are coming to use the tool because it is effective. In 2023, we have seen an increase in seller adoption by 125%. And with that increase in adoption, the number of experiments created by 90%. Of the experiments that attain significance, this is a really exciting stat, the average sales lift observed by using MYE for those products is 25%. So imagine just using this tool on one of your products and getting that type of sales lift. Here's a little bit more specific evidence. There's a QR code on the bottom right that you can scan if you want to read more about this study, and this is a quote from one of our super users called Ankata. And they highlighted how continually running experiments can keep content optimized and how customer shopping preferences can evolve over time. Ankata's business structure is unique in that its e-commerce arm manages Amazon brand accounts for over a dozen brands. Here's a specific example of an experiment that was conducted for Ankata's client, Accutech, which is a razor blade manufacturer. They wanted to increase their total annual sales figures in their American line brand. And by simply updating, as you can see in the image on the right, their image to include the picture of the razor. And this was from learnings that they derived from other past experiments. Accutech's sales jumped from 15,000 to 122,000 per year. So here are just a few other testimonials and proof of MYE's effectiveness. One user highlighted testing new images after the boxing of the material was updated. I think that's a great use case for MYE. You know, if your product is getting updated, you want to test the changes to reflect the changes in the product. While others mention improving conversion and sales and just the value of getting conclusive results to make your decisions. Okay, so moving on to some of the new features and improvements that we've made to the tool. The first is, in Q1 of 2023, we simplified the experiment creation process on MYE by pre-selecting the optimum settings for experiments. So now, all you have to do is just enter the version B and click Submit. So you can still change these settings by expanding the toggle while creating an experiment or from the results page after the experiment has started. Some of the other exciting enhancements to experiments that we've launched are auto-publish, experiment to significance, experimentation for the same product across different countries, and creating experiments directly from the edit listings page to simplify your experiment creation process and make it a little bit more streamlined with your normal listing updates. So let's do a little deep dive into each one of these features. Auto-publish. What is auto-publish? This is a feature which, as it sounds, will automatically publish the winning version of the experiment when it concludes so that you don't have to go back and do it manually. So this is really important because, as you can imagine, without this feature, you could run an experiment for weeks or months and then forget that it even ended. And then for some period of time, you might be leaving some gains on the table by not adopting that more optimized attribute content. And so in the experiment settings, you have a toggle that will allow you to opt in or out of auto-publish in the simplified experience, and this is pre-selected for you by default, but you can opt out of it. The next one is experiment to significance, which enables the automatic conclusion of an experiment when there is enough data to declare a winner. So previously, we had hard-coded week durations, and so if you've ever wondered what the duration of your experiment should be, we've kind of removed the guesswork of that. And so the experiment will keep running, and it'll allow the experiment to end sooner if significance has reached. And so it can now end anywhere between 1 to 10 weeks, depending on how much customer traffic you're getting and how much the sales performance varies between version A and version B. This is also the default setting, and it's the optimum setting that we recommend staying opted into, but you can change to a fixed duration at any point in time. The next feature, in Q2 of this year, we launched the ability to run experiments on the same products across multiple countries that you sell in. That's provided that your product has enough traffic and is eligible in the country that you want to experiment in. So this is an example of what the eligibility modal looked like before the launch. It was not great before. If you already had an experiment running on your product in the US, you could not run an experiment on the same product in the EU. So we know this is really important. Over 18,000 brands sell in more than 2 Amazon countries, and you can maximize the benefit of this feature to get location-specific insights on customer shopping behavior. For example, you could test a different version B in each store depending on what your market research is telling you and what you think will do well. Or you could test the same content across all different countries, and you might find that you get different insights. For example, a version B might convert better in the US than it does in the EU. So lastly, we enabled the simplified experiment creation for title and image experiments on the edit listings page where you would normally go to update your listings. This is the edit listings page on Seller Central that you would navigate to from Manage Your Inventory. So you can create a title or image experiment directly from this page, and all you have to do is enter the version B and hit submit. And again, this is in order to be a little bit more streamlined with your normal listing update processes, because we recommend that you run an experiment as kind of a standard procedure to ensure that your content is always resonating with customers and you're gathering that data that your content updates are effective. All right, moving on to some new experiment types that we are planning to add. So up until today, we have supported images on titles, experiments on titles, images, bullet points, descriptions, and A+ content. So now you can run A/B experiments on the brand story module for A+ content, and you can also test supporting images in addition to the main image. So first, let's talk about brand story. What is brand story? This is a feature that allows brands to showcase more than just their product. It's shown on the detail page under the From Your Brand section, and it allows you to tell consumers more about the brand and highlight other product lines within your brand. You can also link to other product detail pages and your Amazon brand store. Brand story is one of the most visited modules of A+ content, and it is where customers spend the most time viewing on Amazon.com. You can use brand story experiments to learn how to best communicate your brand's value. The next experiment type support that we have added is for supporting images, which are the non-main images that live on the product detail page. And this is a quote from a seller on the value of being able to test supporting images along with the main image. We've received requests for this feature, I think, since I joined the team several years ago to add the support. So we're finally, we're excited to finally get it out there to you guys. So supporting images can be included, as I said, along with the main image in the same experiment. However, it is not required to include supporting images. The benefit of supporting images is that they do not have the same restrictions as the main image. So you can use them in different ways to better communicate other aspects of the product. Now I'll go over a few upcoming features that are coming soon. First one is multi-attribute, or what we're calling simultaneous experiments as a more kind of consumer-friendly name, which allows you to create a single experiment that tests, as it sounds, multiple attributes or all attributes within the same experiment. This is another one that has been frequently requested several times, or over the past few years, as we have historically limited customers to testing a single attribute at a time. And as you can imagine, running one experiment per 5 attributes in sequence would take up to a maximum of 50 weeks compared to a maximum of 10 weeks of testing all 5 attributes in the same multi-attribute experiment. So kind of no longer rate limiting on testing attributes sequentially. So how does traffic work in a simultaneous or multi-attribute experiment? We will direct customer traffic the same way that we would as a standard A/B test, meaning that a customer is going to see the control for every attribute or the treatment for every attribute, meaning we're not going to mix and match and show them version A of the title and version B of the image. And this enables you to essentially A/B test the entire product page in one go. And by doing so, you could test a theory, or if your product has been updated and you need to update multiple pieces, you can do that all at once. The next one is multi-variate testing in industry terms, or combination testing, which is the user-friendly term, which means that you can test multiple variations of the same attribute within the same experiment. So for example, you could test 5 different titles and/or 6 different images all against each other. The number of combinations that you can test is going to depend on how much traffic that you have going to your product. As you could imagine, if you're not getting many views and you have 25 different treatments, for example, it would be pretty hard to tell you which combination is the most successful. So how does traffic work with a combination experiment? We will show different combinations of the provided treatments to different customers. So in this example, there are 2 different versions of 3 different attributes, which yields 8 possible combinations. And all 8 can be shown at the start of the experiment. And the way this works is the multi-attribute algorithm will converge towards the winning combination over time in order to minimize loss and sales. So for example, if version C is clearly driving the most sales, it will receive a higher allocation of customers, and combinations with less conversion will receive a lower allocation over time. Okay, so the next feature is machine learning recommendations. So we're planning to offer content recommendations for titles and A+ content by the end of this year, which will help you leverage learnings from over 500,000 experiments that have already been ran. These recommendations are identified based on trends in past experiments that were run on products under the same category, had similar test content, and produced a conclusive result. So what that means is these are successful experiments, and that means that we have a very high confidence that adopting these recommendations are going to bring you a sales lift. The recommendations will refresh as the ML model trains and newer experiments are created. And so we will be providing dynamic suggestions, so you're always surfacing the latest optimized content. These will be surfaced on MYE itself, the Manager Growth portal in Seller Central, and eventually on the homepage via homepage card. All right, that's all I have for new features, upcoming features. So lastly, let's review some best practices for creating experiments. The simplified experience is designed to reduce your cognitive load and make it easy to create experiments. It's always a good idea to stay opted into the default settings selected for the most optimum outcome. It's also a good idea to run experiments on eligible products on a continued basis so that you can benefit from the latest insights and trends. You can use learnings from an experiment across similar products that belong to the same category. And finally, it is a good practice to use multivariate testing to see which change has the most positive impact. Just a couple of things not to do. We often see brands ending experiments too early when they start to see initial results. So what can happen is with a small amount of data, we might show that there's a high probability that version A is performing better, when in reality, we don't have enough data to say that version A is statistically or significantly better than version B. And what can happen is over time, that winner will actually flip to version B. And so it can be misleading if the experiment didn't have enough time and traffic to determine the winner, and we recommend running the experiment for the full duration with experimental significance to get the results of highest confidence before updating your content. And you also want to make sure that the test content you are submitting is not too similar to the control, otherwise it's not going to be a very meaningful experiment. So, some key takeaways to summarize what we went over today. MYE is available to brand owners with products that receive enough traffic. MYE allows you to optimize your content with scientific accuracy. You can create experiments on any eligible products at any time. And it is important to optimize your product detail pages because that is what customers are using to drive their purchasing decisions. So, thank you, everybody. I hope you learned something about MYE.